Hello, this is Wmpyr here to talk about a grande arte, also known as Exposure, 1991 movie. A very interesting film, lots to talk about. I saw it back in the day, so I saw it in the early 90s. I wish I could say that I saw it in the movie theater. I don't even know if it was released in the movie theater, but I saw it like on Cinemax, something like that, and I've seen it a few times at that time and several times since. It left a very, very strong impact on me, especially because I started my martial arts training in 1990, and in that was included Filipino martial arts. And I knew that my skills were meant to be for the knife. Like the knife was definitely part of the system. So, definitely, this movie is going to be fascinating in that sense. I can't really think of another Hollywood film that covers the knife so much as this movie. The closest second would be The Hunted, and The Hunted is more well known. It's easier to find. This movie, unfortunately, it's pretty hard to find. And the copy that I have is in very, very poor quality, so it doesn't have subtitles, at least not in English. And sometimes it's really hard for me to understand what the heck is being said. Um, and that being said, back in the day when I saw it, very, very strong influence, impact on me because of the filming style, the way that it's shot, all nitty gritty and dark. It's very interesting, and I think even back then, Cinemax may have shown it as avant-garde, like ahead of its time, almost like a artsy fartsy type film. So kudos to the director for doing that. And I just finished doing a talk session with my buddies, two other buddies from Japan, and they're also a big fan of this movie. And we kind of like broke it down and talked about some interesting details and stuff. And I learned some things, and in some ways, it created more questions that I have. It opened up more things that I'm wondering about now. But yeah, so when I saw it in the 90s, I was in junior high school. I was probably, with my maturity level, with my brain level at the time, it was too mature, it's too complex. Even now, I feel like this movie is pretty freaking complex and I don't understand it totally. Yet, it's okay. It's one of those movies that it's okay if you don't understand everything that's going on. If you don't understand the plot and stuff, it's still all right. Um, I was able to appreciate it back then, and there were like scenes that I really really liked. One of the buddies that I talked to, my student, he is a photographer, and the main character in this movie, Peter Coyote, that he plays, Peter Mandrake, a photographer. So, in that sense, I'm sure he could easily relate to, and obviously he's doing Filipino martial arts. Um, so, and I've been strongly stressing to him the knife work, and he likes that kind of stuff anyway. He likes blades and all that. So, yeah, I'm sure there's like a different level that he could relate to in this film. Um, all right, so one of the things, okay, that's interesting about this film is Peter Coyote, American actor, and the gentleman that plays Hermes. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I know I'll butcher it. This gentleman is French, Turkish French, from my understanding. And then Amanda Pays, the actress, is British, and most of the film is shot in Brazil. So this is truly an international movie. And the topic has some very interesting things. So the main character is kind of this nomad. He likes to travel around the world. Remember, this is pre-COVID. Once COVID happened, it seems like people started to value traveling a lot more, traveling around the world, sightseeing, going places they'd never seen before. It was almost like this is the end. So, hey, go live it up kind of thing. I don't know what it was, but COVID, the pandemic, I I don't know. I think in our human history, it's changed us a little, at least a little bit. So this guy was doing that before this time. So I think that that's kind of like a special person in a way, not your normal person, where a lot of people will look for a shelter or a home and they seek comfort, whether that's a hometown, and they don't leave it. A lot of people don't, but this guy, he was traveling around and he ended up in Brazil, and he was doing in the story he was doing this thing that is he was working for the Japanese company, and he was filming. What was it called? Was it called train surfing? Something to that extent. So these young kids in Brazil are surfing, like they're on top of the train on the outside, and so they're like surfing, but they're on the train. It seems extremely dangerous, but that's what they were doing, and it was probably possible because it was Brazil. Maybe in other countries it'd be difficult to do. Although the other person that I just talked to when we were doing this, he's a martial arts instructor over in Japan, and he said that he heard that in New York, in the New York subway system, people were doing this. He said he heard this very, very recently, and I was like, what? That some kids were subway surfing. So yeah, train surfing or whatever. So anyway, this it's almost like it reminds me of skateboarding back when that started. It started almost like from I guess surfing culture, and then it changed to skateboarding, right? Because not everywhere in the U.S. has an ocean. So then, what do you do? That's kind of like surfing, well, skateboarding, right? So that was a subculture. It still is, but yeah, it kind of started off like that. I kind of felt like maybe this train surfing is kind of similar thing. Um, Luckily, didn't catch on really, and that is what he's here to photograph. And it's interesting because he says something along the lines of photography. Some his buddy said to him like photography is kind of like hunting, and he goes to capture his prey, except once he gets his prey, he's not granting them death, he's granting them eternity, in the form of a photograph. I mean, death is eternity, right? So it's kind of similar in a way, but yeah, just interesting thoughts right there. That what his friend was trying to say is that you have the hunting instinct, just not the killing instinct, but a similar instinct there. Something along those lines were said. And then, to me, the fact that it's shot in Brazil and you get to see parts of Brazil at the time, it's wild. It is a different, and a lot of times I know when they show Brazil, they're either going to show the super fancy hotels and touristy areas, or they're going to show the extremely poor areas. It's like a huge, not really an in between. Well, here I felt like they kind of showed more of the in between. And then, of course, the music to me really, really stands out. One of the guys, the instructor guy, he said that the Hermes has his own music. And yeah, every time Hermes comes out, which is rare, it's small the times he comes out, but yes, that music instantly plays. I could hear it in my mind. Very awesome character. They were my buddies were even talking about like, what if they made a part two? That this would be great if they made a part two. And I was like, oh man, I would love to see Hermes in part two. And they were saying they should not put Hermes in part two. And you know what? As much as we would like to see Hermes in part two, I agree. It would be better if now Mandrake was the teacher. He's the Hermes role, and then he has a student kind of, and the way they said it was kind of like a Sith Lord. There's a Sith Lord and the disciple, and then that cycle continues on, and it's by no coincidence I believe he picked Sith Lord rather than Jedi because this is a dark art. And in the beginning of the movie, they don't call it a dark art; they call it the high art, and that's very interesting too. It says like I have a high art, and those that are cruel to me, I'm gonna I'm gonna show them this high art kind of thing. I will take no mercy kind of thing. It is a dark thing. I just butchered the quote there, but you get the idea. But yeah, the music is phenomenal. Even the scenes where it's not Hermes, great music. And when the movie ends, the music kicks in, and yeah, really like it a lot. Okay, so then one of the scenes here that is one of the show stealers, and you could find this clip on YouTube, is when they meet the knife seller. It kind of draws, shades of Taxi Driver, where Robert De Niro's character is trying to buy guns, right? Very similar in that sense. And one of the knives shown is here, right here, a Texas knife maker, Joe Kios, right here. Very cool knife. The one that's shown in the movie is very similar looking to this. And then, of course, they also mention in the movie this Boker Applegate. They said used by British commandos, but by this time, since it's Applegate is involved, Colonel Applegate, this should be U.S. And the instructor guy said this is not a military knife. I don't know about that. I thought it was a military knife, but he said it's not. I don't know what he means by that, but yeah, yeah, I totally thought it was a military knife. But he's not someone to just make stuff up either. So I don't know what perspective he has on that. Maybe I'll talk to him about it sometime. But in the movie, Hermes says that this is, well, first of all, the knife guy says this is a SAS. No, he said used by British commandos, which is, like I said, by this time, no. And then, but it is a Fairbairn, Captain Fairbairn design knife, and someone corrected me and said it's not Captain Fairbairn, but I believe I checked on that before, like when I was doing my research, a while back, and when I checked. I don't know where he gets the title, but he definitely does. I believe, was it in Get Tough? He signs it Captain Fairbairn, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere along the lines in my research, it did say Captain Fairbairn. He's known as Captain. I don't know if it was he was called Captain in the Shanghai Police, or the military gave it to him as an honorary title. I don't know. I really don't know, but. It is definitely a title that he does go by as well. So just pointing that out. But anyway, this design is closer, not to the SAS knife, but closer to the original Shanghai knife that Captain Fairbairn seemed to really like, and I believe he preferred over the SAS commando knife. And I remember thinking to myself when I saw the SAS knife that I didn't really care so much for the design. I was like, that's I don't know about that one, but looking at this, I like this way better. But anyway, Hermes says, the character Hermes in the movie, he says that this is like more of a offensive type of knife, and that's a, like, if it is at least based off of military type of intentions, to me that sounds like a safe thing to say, like a logical safe thing to say. And then he says this one, the random model 14, this one is better for attack and defense. Now I'm not quite sure what exactly that means, but I think, yes, I know what attack is and I know what a defense is, so I understand that part. But um, what exactly kind of strategy techniques are we talking about? That to me was remained to be seen. But so in that scene, I know it's a classic scene. Love the scene. Seen it many times. You could see it on YouTube. They buy the knives, and I was like, okay, which knife did they buy? And we were talking about it. It was something I brought up, and from our conclusion, it seems like Hermes bought both. He bought two knives, right? He bought two. He bought it, not his student. So I guess he gave him this knife, right? So he presented him this knife, I guess, almost like a graduation present. And we were also saying that this is not a cheap knife, right? So anyway, Hermes bought the Randall Model 14 for Mandrake, the main character, but he bought this one for himself because he's a knife nut. He's into knives. That was our conclusion, that he really likes this stuff. And interesting enough, I believe the bad guy, the main last boss of the movie, he uses a kiosk knife. If I'm not mistaken, it looked like one of his knives. And then one of the thug guys, not just any thug, but the the guy who reminded me of a Brazilian Jack the Ripper. They were saying that because he's smiling a lot and he's a psychopath, and that he's kind of like a Joker, as in Batman type Joker type character. I mean, they really nailed it. Out of the ballpark with the casting. I mean, from Peter Coyote to Hermes to everybody is like perfect for their role. I think the casting is really amazing, including the 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 killer guy, the thug killer guy, the guy who ends up being he owns a rose garden or a rose farm. That dude. Anyway, that guy has a Spyderco, and we believe it is the Spyderco police model. It is the only folding knife in the movie. And anyway, yeah, we were like interesting that he has that one, um, which we were saying is kind of an uh, that's a pretty particular knife for just some thug guy to have. But yeah, he's a special psychopathic killer. But okay, the story itself is, so this is based off of a book, and I on Wikipedia it says that loosely based. So I don't know how close or how different from the actual book it is. And they even my buddies even speculated that they were like, this whole knife thing, this might just be the director or the producers, they like knives, so that's why the knife is in here. But maybe in the book is maybe not that much knife in there. I don't know, haven't read it, but I told them that I believe that the knife does play an integral role in the story. That's just my own assumption, just because in the movie they do mention Persev, which is the name of the actual style, the knife fighting style, and even though in the movie they use Filipino martial arts, which I learned from Professor Bram Frank. He confirmed it for me. He said this movie, and it seems like this is one of his favorite knife movies. Unfortunately, there's not that many knife movies, but I would say this is one of his, seems like one of his favorites, that he's a big fan of this movie. The Hermes character owns one of his knives. And then the Randall knives, Professor Bram Frank is a big fan of Randall knives. Yeah, he knows the Randall family. So, yeah. He got. I think he's super into this movie, in that he does like it. Um, so anyway, where was I? I was talking about the book, right? Persev, perforate and sever. Combine that together. You call it Persev. So where did that word come from? I believe it came from the book. So that's why I'm guessing, because they don't say we this is Filipino martial arts, even though it is. They don't say that, and they say no, it's Persev. Now my buddies watched the Japanese version, and I asked them, like, do they say this in the movie Persev? And they said no, they don't say it in the movie. Apparently, on the DVD box, it does say something like this is a Brazilian knife style or something like that, but that's about it. That's the extent. They don't go and give you the actual name Persev. So yeah. Anyway, the character Peter Coyote's character, we basically we were watching this guy, and he is an adventurer. He is a little bit different kind of guy, and the way he with his girlfriend played by the British actress Amanda Pace, different seems like a different kind of relationship. Maybe they have an open relationship. I don't know what that they definitely don't seem the normal. Like, and this is apparent, like when they first meet. He just picks up her bags and goes up the stairs like halfway, and then she tells him to stop, and he drops them. It's not a, oh, I couldn't wait to see you. It's not the way most lovers who haven't seen each other in a while, the way they encounter each other. It's a little weird. So his personality is not the normal kind of guy. I think is what they're trying to make clear. He's definitely seems like a playboy. He's well traveled around the world, and then but because he's off in that sense, he's not normal. I guess maybe they're trying to say that's why he was able to learn the high art here in the movie, like I said, the dark art. And I really don't like it when knife skills is portrayed in a dark manner, but at the end of the day, this is something that you cannot take lightly, and I don't take it lightly. And Professor Bram Frank the same way, and that's why he developed using his knife closed, and to do that first. It makes sense. If you really understand the blade, then you know that it can take a life, and that's an extremely dark thing. Although at the same time, we use a knife every day. We eat with it every day, so we cook with it, we eat with it. It's a useful tool. So, there's really two sides to it, and but in this film, I believe that this is justifiably portrayed in a dark manner, not someone going, "Oh, you use a knife? Oh, you're a thug. Oh, that's bad. That's evil." It's different from that. I mean, these guys, like Hermes, is pretty much an assassin. So, I working for the I don't know what else to call it, but like a syndicate. So I understand. I get it. And this what happens here is Mandrake, the main character, he, like I said, is kind of like this playboy. Not kinda. I think he's a total playboy. And then so he meets this prostitute who's his friend. He hadn't seen in a long time, but you kind of get the feeling that they've messed around before. And so she comes to him saying she has a problem. And most people, I think, would be like, don't want to get involved, and he kind of tells her, "Hey, look, what's going on? Just like step away from it." And she's like, "I have this disc." And he's like, "Well, give it back." He it makes sense what he's saying, but she's like, I don't think it's going to be that simple. Can you be there? Can you protect me? And so he gets involved. She gets killed. And then from there, he figures out, just out of coincidence, he's like, this dude is involved. Like, I don't know 100%, but this guy's involved. So he goes to this guy who is a guy, basically, you find out real fast, this is a guy you don't want to mess with. And he goes up to that guy, and boy, is he ballsy in the way he did it. I mean, even before that, like, to find out information, he just went like, I'm not going to pay you any money. I don't have money, but you're going to give me the information. That's what the instructor guy said. And then he goes up to, the guy that he suspects is behind all this, and he goes up to him in that guy's place and basically tells him, hey, I know what the hell you did, kind of thing. And it's very, very ballsy. The police won't do anything about it, so he's taking matters into his own hands and confronts the guy. Not a smart move at all, but I think, once again, it speaks volumes about his character. It works with his character, but he pays such a brutal price. At this point, it's almost like The Crow. He gets killed, but he survives, but he's pretty much left for dead, and his girlfriend gets raped. I mean, it's horrible. So that, in that sense, yeah, that part of the movie, obviously, I don't like it at all. I don't like any of the violent parts in that sense. But yeah, that's a horrible, horrible scene. And then luckily he survives. If it was real life, it's not like, okay, you're ready to get out of the hospital now. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to go right back to detective work. No, I think in real life, for at least 6 months, he's still going to have to be tending to his wounds. That's how it would be. He was stabbed by a knife twice in the abdomen area. And yeah, I think he would have been going to the bathroom through a bag for months. I think it would have been really, really bad, The instructor from Japan said that the human body, the abdomen area, is sealed up in a sense. So when you puncture a hole in it, it tends to spill out. It's almost like a vacuum effect is what he was talking about. And yeah, I'm not, I'm ER person or anything, so I don't know about that. But yeah, I can believe that. It just sounds. All I know is that you don't just come out of a knife wound like that, like, oh, okay, no, it's a tremendous thing, and he was really lucky to survive. They do tell him that he was lucky to survive, but right after he comes out, he's up and ready. It is what it looked like, and that's just not realistic. But anyway, so his girlfriend amazingly wants to stay with him, and we commented on that, and she wants to move forwards, but this guy, he can't let it go. And for all intents and purposes, I think a normal person would, you have a beautiful girlfriend, you're lucky to survive, now it's time to leave the country, just the two of you, and start thinking what's really important in your life, and that should be your relationship with this wonderful girl that you both survived and you both live life to the fullest, kind of thing. But no, not this guy. This guy's like, I can't let this go. And so he finds Hermes and asks Hermes to teach him the ways of the knife. And Hermes like, why? Get a gun. And Mandrake, the character, he's like, you owe me. And that comes from a scene, the one scene we see Hermes fight, where you could tell he's like, that scene, he's in command. Like, you could tell he is the man with the knife, right? So Hermes he's doing amazing, and he murders this guy in a knife fight right in front of like a crowd, and Mandrake stumbles upon it. He's taking photos, And then there's one scene that, even though as awesome as Hermes is, there was a scene where he was about to get seriously taken out from like behind. And Mandrake tells him like, "Hey, watch out!" And Hermes like, you know, notices the guy coming, and so in a way, Mandrake does save his life. He really does. So as awesome as Hermes was, we came to the agreement that that he could have died, or he could have been in serious trouble at that time. And this is a master, you know. He like I said, he was amazing in that fight, but even him, you know, he could have been done. So all the fight scenes, the violent scenes, is almost very realistic. And some of the scenes where the person is just victimized, the way that it's shot, it's like first person viewpoint. So extremely dark and gritty and realistic. One of very realistic looking fight scenes in that sense. We were very, very impressed with the choreography, the fight choreography in that sense. And anyway, so that's why Mandrake is like, "You owe me." And finally, Hermes is like, "All right," and he's going to teach him. And then the first thing they do is Hermes calls in the knife seller, and he buys, like I said, two knives. So that to me is something that I would never do with my student. The first thing we do is not knife shopping, but it made sense to me because once he bought the knife and they started training, he wouldn't let Mandrake touch the knife. Like he was like, "When do I get to use the knife?" He's like, "Nope, not yet." Like, "No, here's a ruler. You're going to use this ruler instead." And so for a while, the training seems relatively short. We were guessing like maybe a month of intensive training is what it looked like. But he was like, "No, man, you're using the ruler." And then one day, finally, he says, "All right, take out the knife." So that I am in total agreement with. So the fact that they bought the knife first, I was like, "What?" And then they did that. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I guess Hermes was so confident that this dude was going to make the training. And my student, he just came back from the mountain training, and he said that Captain Fairbairn said something about, if you train 30 minutes with the knife, you'll be able to use it. 30 minutes. It is so he went up into the mountain and he did 30 minutes of training, inspired by Captain Fairbairn. But yeah, this is the kind of guy he is. So anyway, yeah, the training doesn't have to be super long, right? It is, if a person takes out a knife, they're already a threat. I mean, and just with instincts, and if they're really intent on it, they're super dangerous. They can be. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's what this was kind of the message here, that you don't have to be training years and years and years and years and years to be deadly with a knife. And anyway, so from there, Mandrake gets called back. Once he completes his training, Hermes is like, "Don't ever contact me again. Don't ever look for me again. This is goodbye," kind of thing. And that's it. And we, the viewers, pretty much expect not to see him again. And that's it. And then from there, Mandrake gets called in by the police, and the police are very, very generous with their information towards Mandrake. They meet like at least twice, and both times they seem very loose with their information towards Mandrake. It's almost like they're egging him on, almost like they're saying, "Hey, go do this. Like, we know you're a vigilante, you want to do this. We say don't do it, but here's the open path," kind of thing. "Here's all the info you need," kind of thing. So it's kind of weird in that sense. Maybe they do sense this out of him. I don't know. So they asked Mandrake to identify one of his attackers when he was attacked and his girlfriend was raped, and he was left for dead. One of the guys was this Bolivian giant guy, really massive looking dude. Once again, fits perfect for the part. And they're like, "We're going to let him go and we're supposed to like follow him and find out, and but these things can be tricky or blah 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 blah. So Mandrake's like, all right, I'm gonna. He doesn't tell them, but he goes after. I believe he obviously, he's not gonna tell the police, and he goes after this guy by himself. So now he's vigilante. So at this point, his girlfriend and him they're no more. So and by the way, she hated him training in the knife the whole time. While Hermes is like, I don't want to be. There are no witnesses. Like no one can watch you train. But she's watching like in secret, and she's crying the whole time. She hates it because she wants to move on with him. And she doesn't want to keep reliving this nightmare, but he can't let it go. So I get it. I understand. And he keeps getting suckered back into this world, this dark world of violence, which we suspected even from his name Mandrake. Maybe he's just fascinated by the darkness because he's just that kind of guy. Who knows? So he goes after the giant, who loses an eye in a battle with this female prostitute, and we were going, what is she trying to accomplish here? Which, of course, Mandrake sleeps with her too. So it was kind of like, man, this guy's like James Bond, right? He's totally like James Bond, and all the girls that he meets, they end up like in horrible situations. Like he brings like the worst luck to them, and so she's killed by the giant. But they brawl, and that's where she takes out the guy's eye. But yeah, the instructor guy was saying like, what was she trying to find out? Like there's no information that she could find really that the cops probably didn't already know. So what was the point in that is what he was saying. But the point was, I don't know, it was just violence. It was a very violent encounter there, and despite the size difference, she put up a very good fight. It was very ugly fight, and she ended up losing her life. It's quick and short, but it's brutal and violent, like the way you'd imagine real life to be. So Mandrake keeps pursuing the giant, and then they end up like in this just random drive-by shooting. And I was like, what's up with that? And we really didn't know what was up with that, but that happens. And then the giant gets away, and Mandrake gets knocked out by somebody. We have no idea who it is, but he gets knocked out. We were assuming, or at least the instructor guy pointed out, that he thinks it's Hermes. And they don't show us who knocks him out. So we really don't know. But he saw several clips where he felt like it indicated that it could be Hermes. Several scenes where he said that he was like, maybe Hermes was dressed up like an old lady or something like that, in disguise with a hat, something along those lines. I don't know. I have to go back and check the scenes, but he said he saw someone very suspicious, during those when Mandrake's pursuing the giant. He noticed some scenes like that, and he felt like Hermes was there. So it's like, wow, that's crazy. Anyway, so from there, I guess Mandrake wakes up like in just some, look like a abandoned Pueblo city kind of thing, and then he ends up just coming back to Brazil. So he basically accomplished nothing, right? And he just comes back, and then from there, the guy that he confronted gets murdered. That guy gets murdered by the Jack the Ripper guy that I was mentioning, the guy that uses a Spyderco knife, and you could really see how crazy he is there. And they said that he had like he was a necrophiliac. Could have been. I didn't. My brain must have like uh, ignored that scene and wiped it out of my brain, because I don't remember that. But yeah, or maybe that was just implied. I don't know. But yeah, the guy's a sick man, that's for sure. And I was like, they later talk about Hermes shows himself once again, and Hermes' boss is the main bad guy. The guy, he's not only the main bad guy, he's the guy that taught Hermes Persev. And then Persev taught Mandrake. And so that last boss guy, he tells Hermes, kill Mandrake. And they were kind of wondering why. Why Mandrake's not even, what does he have to do with anything? He's just a guy that just kind of won't go away. But he's not the main problem here, and the disc and all that's the problem. But Mandrake really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just that prostitute girl came up to him and said, hey, and he just put himself involved. But other than that, it's not like he had the disc. So anyway, that guy tells Hermes, kill Mandrake, and Hermes is like, well, he's my student. I don't want to do it. And then the boss is like, oh, please, But all right, so moving forwards, Mandrake teams up with a dwarf who is the rival of the last boss, and the last boss finds out that someone betrayed them, and that's why the disc was missing, and blah 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 blah. But apparently, the prostitute girl, she accidentally took the disc, was a complete accident. So that's what we came to that kind of conclusion. And I was like, was she hired by Jack the Ripper, or what the heck? So I was getting really confused with the story part. And we kind of came to that conclusion, but there's nothing 100%. Maybe we need to read the book to know what really, really, really is the story here. It's kind of unclear, but there's so much here with the music, the scenery, the location, the exotic Brazil, Bolivia, the scenery changes from the city in Brazil to the flat landscape of Bolivia. Mandrake doing the knife training with this super intense Hermes. All those kinds of stuff, the murder scenes. There's so much here that even if you can't follow what the heck's really going on plot-wise, you get the main idea that Mandrake learns the knife and he wants revenge, and then they end up fighting. So and it concludes, and it's very satisfactory. Like everything works out. Like even if the details don't make sense or whatever, everything just kind of falls into place, so to speak. It's okay. It's one of those kinds of movies. But yeah, when we're deep diving right here and we're trying to figure things out, we're going, what? Why would he do that? There's some things like that. Like, did Hermes really go to Bolivia pursuing this guy? So then at that point he knows. So before that, when Hermes was training Mandrake, did he know about Mandrake and the disc and all that? And it's like, why would he? He's just like the assassin guy. Why would they tell him that? So there's a lot of context there that we're not exactly sure, that doesn't necessarily add up, that we're trying to figure out. But at the end of the day, the Jack the Ripper guy gets killed, right? And then we don't see the disc anymore. After the disc is now in the hands of the rival. So then it's like the last boss, Hermes Syndicate, they're in big trouble. They lost the disc. I mean, they're done for. And at that point, do they even really need to fight Mandrake? Because he's done, and fighting Mandrake not going to change anything. So what is that about? And he tries to order Hermes to do it, and Hermes like, do it yourself, and he walks away. And that's the end that we see of Hermes. And I mean, this is towards the end of the movie anyway. And so Mandrake, essentially, he has to fight the last boss now, and this is actually his first fight too. with the knife. So I was really, really disappointed that I didn't get to see Mandrake battle the giant. But instead, we saw the girl fight him, the prostitute, and she just gets murdered. Uh, I was. I remember back in the '90s, like being super disappointed that he didn't fight the giant there. I was like, he should have, and he didn't. And it was kind of like Enter the Dragon, where Bruce Lee and Bolo do not fight. It's like, I want to see that, and it doesn't happen. So here too, it doesn't happen, and you think that Mandrake is going to battle the Jack the Ripper guy, the psychopath. Nope, that doesn't happen either. He gets killed, and so then we're left with Mandrake versus his teacher's teacher. So the last boss, the guy that taught Hermes, they're battling for some reason. I don't know why, but here we go. And we're just thinking he was just misinformed. He just thought Mandrake is the cause of all this. That he just didn't really know exactly. And then so now they're there to battle, and it is a gruesome fight. It's a good fight, and I was trying to pay attention to what knife was Mandrake using, and it looked like Durando 14. And then once he wins, and honestly, it looked like it wasn't because of skill. It looked like because of pure luck. And we were trying to guesstimate their skill level at this point. We were saying that, well, the guy that taught Hermes, you think is more skilled or better than Hermes. But then we were like, no, because Hermes is still like an active assassin. So he's put in the time in that sense, a lot more time. So he's the better guy right now. He's prime. And the last boss is now living kind of like a spoiled life, rich food, women. He's out of the game in that sense, right? So his skill level must be lower, even though he's the guy that taught Hermes, is what we were thinking. And yeah, Mandrake, who just learned this, and and he has incentive. He has like a burning fire inside of him that motivated him to do all this, which a normal person would never cross this line or cross all these multiple lines. This guy just keeps going and going. He doesn't give up. He won't quit, So maybe that was enough to where he was able to win, because he was like the Rocky in this situation, and so he beat Hermes's master, Hermes' teacher, and then in the end, Mandrake just leaves the knife and takes off. He's done. And when he's done, I think him leaving the knife was a big statement there. And Hermes gets the knife. He cleans it and he gets it back. So, we were saying, well, he bought the knife for the guy, and now he got the knife back. And Mandrake, we believe, will probably, as far as he's concerned, he's done. He's not going to keep practicing the knife skills. He doesn't want to use it anymore. He doesn't want to think it. He's not going to be walking around with a knife anymore. He's done with that, right? And he goes up to his girlfriend. He meets with her again, and they're like, hey, let's meet up again, kind of thing. But I'm going to be in Africa. They part ways. The way that it's shot, my student, the photographer guy, he said that it looks like they're parting ways. They're walking different paths now. That's what it looks like to him, and it sure does. So even though they're cool with each other, we don't think that they're really going to get back together again. I jokingly said the next time they meet, she's going to show him her children and her husband, and I have a family, kind of thing. And they're just going to be like, oh, what could have been, kind of thing. Kind of like Great Expectations, that the end of that movie right there. I think it would be like that. And then we were saying this is where a part 2 would be awesome, where he gets once again drawn into the dark side, and he has to take out the knife, and this time he's the teacher. And how cool would that be? So anyway, this is man, this is an amazing movie. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a little bit harder to find than like The Hunted, starring Tommy Lee Jones, Benicio del Toro. So that's the film that I recommend to everyone when you want to know about Filipino martial arts. Unfortunately, they don't really show any stick training. Um, but this movie right here, if you like knives, you're interested in knife combat or knife for self defense or tactical knives, or this is definitely a great film to watch. And you know, uh, I was told that what you're seeing is actually Filipino martial arts. So anyway, there you go. The choreography, I think Professor Bram Frank said Jeff Imada, who is a Filipino martial arts guy. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing and take care, folks.